Hello and welcome back to Almost Cult Classics, the podcast. My name is Joe Ramone, and as always, I'm joined by my friend and co-host, Mr. Ryan Lancello.
Howdy, folks.
Now, we're talking today about 1979's 1941, directed by Steven Spielberg, written by Robert Zemeckis and Bob Gale, and starring everyone remotely popular in 1979.
And before then.
Zemeckis and Gale, if you don't know, they went on to write Back to the Future for Spielberg. Coming into this, they had just, I think the only film they had done was called I Want to Hold Your Hand, which is like a Beatles mania story.
You're right. Or did they do used cars before this?
After this. Spielberg, and we're going to talk a little bit about that in a bit, but Spielberg's coming off two huge hits, Close Encounters and Jaws. And yeah, he decides to direct this film. It's kind of regarded as being a flop and failed critically. In reality, it really doesn't do that bad financially. It grosses $95 million on 35, which it's just bad compared to how Spielberg the movies were grossing.
Yeah, I mean, once again, you had Close Encounters and Jaws before this, so there were mega hits.
Yeah,
studio is going to be expecting that again. So I could see how it would maybe be considered a flop in some terms. Here's the other thing too, man. I've been reading a lot about like Hollywood accounting and all that stuff. I don't think, I think this might be a bold statement, but I'll go on record. I think there's not one movie ever made that's had an honest accounting of how much it's made, how much it cost. It doesn't exist.
Yeah, when you factor in marketing and what they spend on that, and that budget, that's a separate budget that comes out of the marketing department.
It's a labyrinth of accounting when it comes to a lot of this stuff. So to say, I mean, it made money for sure. It's not like it wasn't a loss by any means, but.
So I know going into this, you had never seen this film. So what's your first impressions on 1941?
I loved it. I thought it was I knew we were going to disagree on this one. I knew it. The second I started watching it, and I'm like, oh, this is my cup of tea. And I just imagined you just struggling to get through it.
We need to point out one thing before we get into more of your thoughts. You and I watched two different cuts of the movie, which was unbeknown to me until it wrapped. I had looked up the runtime on this on IMDb and saw it was 2 hours, and I was like, okay, I can plan my day around that, because the movies we watch for these podcasts, like, it's not just like you can have it on the background. You have to be sitting there paying attention, kind of jotting things down.
That's what I like to do.
And so I was like, all right, 2 hours, I'll be fine. And the movie's going along. And first of all, the DVD I have is probably from 2002 because it's that weird widescreen, but it's full screen.
Oh,
so
really?
The image on my TV, which is a widescreen television, obviously, it's like half the size of the screen is what I'm looking at. So I should have pulled up close. And the movie's going on, and I'm like, this isn't 2 hours. Like, it's getting close to 2 hours, and nothing is wrapped up. So I hit like the pause to see the timeline. There's 30 minutes left.
I remember, and we'll break it the whole plot down or whatever, what exists of a plot. But it was right after that opening sequence where he kind of parodies Jaws.
Yeah.
So the movie kind of starts with this girl. It's almost exactly like Jaws.
Well, it's the same girl.
It is the same girl, but obviously they're in California.
Yeah.
It is the same girl. I didn't get her name. It's like I'm a little lazy, but so she goes out to skinny dip, and in the early morning hours or whatever. And instead of a shark, the Japanese sub surfaces, and she gets stuck on it. When that sequence ends, I'm like, oh my God. I'm not even 10 minutes into this movie. I'm like, oh boy, Joe must have had a rough time.
Well, I like the opening. We should also point out, amazing score by John Williams. And in that opening scene, there's almost like a hint of the Jaws theme happening.
Yeah, no, there's the dun.
Yeah, it's a really fun little kind of parody about, we talked about Jaws parodies a little bit in our last episode on Matinee.
Oh, by the way, can I want to issue a retraction.
Okay.
Last episode, I was talking about Piranha and how I felt that it wasn't really that much of a Jaws ripoff. Well, I watched every movie Spielberg made leading up to 1941 to just kind of do this. So I hadn't watched Jaws in years. I rewatched it. Piranha's a total ripoff.
Oh, is it?
Oh, I was totally wrong. I was so wrong.
Like story-wise?
It's just the beats. Okay. I mean, it's not totally a ripoff, but I just forgot what goes on in Jaws, and yeah, it's a Jaws ripoff. I
should put in. I'm going to put in here what you said last week. Did you watch Piranha?
I did.
How was it?
It's fun.
It's like a Jaws knockoff.
You know what's funny? I think it got called. Joe Dante will say it's a parody or an homage or whatever, but I could see why they said it was a knockoff because it was a water thing biting you, but it's beyond that. It doesn't seem like Jaws at all. It's a totally different type of movie. Totally different type of movie.
So yeah, 1941. We watched two different cuts. I'm interested to see what the difference there was. I know there's a couple, but there is so much going on in this movie.
There's a lot going on,
and that's not to say I don't think it works. So the plot of this movie is basically it takes place the week of Pearl Harbor. It's very shortly after.
It happened already, at the very least. Everyone's on high alert. And
that's basically what the movie is. It's a bunch of different segments and storylines that are loosely connected that focus on different, I don't know what you would say, different walks of American life who are reacting to the imminent threat of war.
Sure.
It's a comedy at heart. There's some dramatic moments. Yeah, I don't know how else to explain it. For me, it felt like this movie had an identity crisis where it wanted to be like the zany Animal House, and it wanted to be a throwback to like the 40s, Abbott and Costello go to war comedies. Mm-hmm. But then they also wanted to do like a war epic. I don't know. There was all these different pieces that just, I liked some of them, but there were a couple of these, plot threads in this movie that I just hated. The guy and the girl on the airplane I thought was so dumb. I thought that was so stupid. But yeah, we'll go through it, in detail. So what can you say about Spielberg, where he's at the time this movie is made?
So like I said, it's his fifth movie. And so for the sake of this, we'll say Duel. Now you get to really hear my accent where I said Duel. Duel is kind of his first movie. It's a TV movie. It was like an ABC made-for-TV movie. It eventually they added a few scenes and it got somewhat of a theatrical release. But for all intents and purposes, this is kind of his first movie. Because, Spielberg was doing TV work before that. A lot of, I think, Night Gallery, say Kolchak or Columbo or something.
It was definitely Columbo. He did a couple episodes of.
Fuck, I got to watch his Columbus.
I think there's one or two.
Let me ask you one more thing.
I got the complete series.
I would love to watch the Spielberg.
That's something
Columbus.
Every Amazon Prime Day they throw up. Columbo, the complete set for $20.
Oh, you could do a lot worse. It's a fantastic show.
It's a huge box set too. That show went on for
it really did
decades. But go on.
So he gets the chance to do Duel, and I definitely recommend. I had never seen this for whatever reason. It's shot unbelievably well.
Explain the premise of Duel.
Whole premise of Duel is basically some pencil neck is on his way to work, or he has some client meeting or something, and he gets stuck behind this big truck. So he eventually passes it, and the truck passes him back, and then he passes the truck, and the truck driver's just a maniac, and he kind of is pursuing, and screwing with the guy the whole time.
It's the whole movie, though.
It's the whole movie, and the funny thing is it's kind of boring at parts.
Yeah,
like it's a very banal suspense because he's like, will he pass him? Will he not? And there's parts where it's like, all right, dude, just fucking pass him. Like it really drags it out.
I always remember the one scene in that movie where, and I haven't seen it in a long time, but like the truck driver is ahead of him, and he puts his hand out to wave him by, and he gets in the other lane to go by, and there's like a fucking truck coming.
There's a truck coming right at him. It's good. It's a good movie. It's impeccably shot.
Do you ever see the truck driver?
You see his arm. You kind of see him a little bit, but otherwise,
that's it.
There's like 2 or 3 very quick shots of him. So it's an interesting movie. It's impeccably shot.
Yeah.
The confidence in which, and you can go all through all of these movies. He just was extremely confident with a camera. You can tell it's just there's such a precision with the way Spielberg shoots stuff. And Duel is like amazing to look at. Highly recommend that one. It was 1971. Really good. He follows that up with another kind of forgotten Spielberg movie, 1974, Sugarland Express. I love this movie. You ever see this?
No.
I'll say, why do we say it like that?
I just haven't seen it.
It's good. I really liked it. Goldie Hawn almost ruins it. I'm not a fan. But in spite of her, it's awesome. It's got a just spectacle. Like Spielberg was really out on like these southwestern roads, like in Texas and Southern California, like shooting all this desert stuff. Really great. It's just a good story. Sugarland Express is really good. I'm surprised that that's as forgotten as it is. It's fantastic. I can't recommend that one enough.
Well, it's probably because he follows up those two movies with 2 gigantic films.
Jaws in 75 and then Close Encounters in 77, which are, all-time classics, right?
Yeah. And Jaws is Universal, and Close Encounters is Columbia, who both come together to make this film because of the faith they had to Spielberg. Because not one studio was willing to finance this project. So they bring in Columbia and Universal to bankroll the film, because it is an expensive film. You can tell that just by watching this film.
I wanted to look up the inflation, because what you said, it was a $35 million
$35 million budget.
I mean, today, that's probably, what, 70 to 100?
I would imagine.
Somewhere in there.
Yeah.
And you can see the money's put on the screen.
Yes.
Like, I think that's one of the reasons I liked it so much, is because my constant screed against CGI is that they had to do this shit.
Yeah.
They had to film this shit.
A lot of miniatures and matte painting stuff.
And funny enough, I think there's actually not that much matte, because from I read something, Spielberg got tired of that on Close Encounters, and he wanted to do, basically, the quote I saw was, "We're filming it the way D.W. Griffith would have filmed it." And so for you know, obviously D.W. Griffith, very early filmmaker, no CGI for him.
Yeah.
You have to use the shit you have. So
and we'll get to that ending scene with the house. Like that's like shit you do not see today. Like
no. And honestly, I really have to say this again, because I hadn't seen Jaws in a long time. It's really, really good. I forgot, like, because you forget, it's so much of it in your head culturally is them on the boat. It's like the last half hour of a 2-hour movie.
It's a lot more about the politics of the town.
A lot
and
of
that stuff.
lead up, and it's awesome. It's great. And not only that, I forgot, I wonder if this is the first time it's been done, but Quint does the nails on a chalkboard thing to get everyone's attention at like the town hall meeting. What? I'm watching, I was like, well,
Do you think that's the first example?
It couldn't have been the first, but I'm like, holy shit, he's actually doing nails on a chalkboard.
So, yeah, this movie, again, written by Zemeckis and Gale, and I read like one of the original titles is like The Night the Japs Attacked or something, was like, and they just couldn't get anyone to finance it.
Dude, I read because John Milius was the executive producer on this. Big fan of Milius, by the way, but they just wanted to call it Japs at one point. So, I mean...
Yeah, it's an epic. I mean, it is. Before we started recording, I compared it to It's a Mad, 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 Mad World, because it's an ensemble cast that's huge.
And I love that movie, so I think that's why I liked this one so much.
And that's not just, again, I did not dislike this movie, but there were parts of it, and it might have been a director's cut, who knows. First of all, I didn't think Spielberg did director's cuts. I thought his films were director's cuts. I didn't think, I guess early in his career, maybe when he was trying to deal with studios, they would actually not let him cut the film.
I wouldn't doubt it. Look, here's the thing. Even everyone involved with this knew at the end that they were like, oh, fuck, we made a big mess. It's a big mess. That's not even a criticism on my part. It's just objective.
That's a good title for it.
It's
a big mess.
It's a mess of a movie. It really is. But it's a fun mess, in my opinion. But they all knew. I think it was Sid Sheinberg, a classic studio head, I think came up to Spielberg. He's like, there's a movie in there if you find it. So it's like they all knew. Apparently, Belushi and Aykroyd were like, who gives a shit?
I heard that apparently Kubrick advised Spielberg to make it into a drama, and then John Wayne, who he wanted for the part of Stillwell, advised him not to make it because it just... John Wayne was also like anti-patriot or something.
Well, that's how he thought the movie was. He thought it was, you're making light of, veterans or whatever. John Wayne, he always had to stick up his ass about that kind of stuff. What was the other thing he turned down? Or he did something.
He turned down Blazing Saddles.
Was that what it was?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They offered him the Waco Kid, and he turned it down because he thought it would like ruin his family-friendly image, or it wasn't like...
There was something else he turned down. Yeah, I can't quite remember.
Wasn't Genghis Khan.
No, didn't they all die from that? No, seriously, I think they filmed that movie out in the desert where they were testing A-bombs.
Oh, really?
And everyone in the cast got cancer from it.
Well...
Fact check us on that one, folks.
Yeah, leave a comment. So, real quick, though, I want to talk about the marketing of this movie a little bit, because I feel like that's part of the reason it might not be as... or people were kind of let down by it. It's almost marketed as like, oh, it's this Belushi comedy with Aykroyd.
I'm looking. Yeah, you got the DVD right in front of me. It's got Aykroyd and Belushi right on the cover.
Right on the cover, and they don't share a single scene together.
I think at the end they salute each other.
They salute each other, but that's it.
And not only that, they're not. I mean, they're in the movie, but
no, Belushi's in maybe like 20 minutes total.
There's so much going on in this movie. That's the thing. It's going to be hard for us to kind of walk through the plot.
Yeah, I mean, we're gonna try our best here. I mean, there's so many characters, there's so many character names. We're gonna mess up. We're just gonna kind of ramble through it and probably sidetrack to talk about more specific things. But yeah, I mean, apparently they basically take a bunch of actual things that happen, which was the Great Los Angeles Air Raid. Happens in 1942.
Right, and there's a famous picture with that. I'm a big, or I don't know, big UFO guy. And there's a great picture of all the searchlights pointed at basically nothing in the sky that they were shooting at during this. And that's always been, I've always seen that in UFO circles. That picture always gets thrown up. But yeah, there was the Great Los Angeles Air Raid.
That's when Dan Aykroyd got the script. He said, listen, Steven, I think you should put some aliens in it. That'll be a great tie-in to the aliens. But
there was that. There was the Zoot Suit riot where Hispanic teens were fighting with the servicemen, and then there was I think some refinery.
I think
there was a refinery got shelled.
Yeah, there was an oil refinery where near Santa Barbara where there was apparently a Japanese sub. So they take a bunch of real life things, which seems like similar to what they did with I Want to Hold Your Hand, where they take real life events and write in a kind of plot that connects them. So, from a historical standpoint, that's kind of inventive. I'm not, I don't hate that idea. I mean, Spielberg goes on to do it in Raiders of the Lost Ark and, those other films. In fact, I read that, that coat hanger scene in Raiders.
Which one is that?
It's when Tote, he comes into the tent and to Marion Ravenwood, and his assistant, whoever, takes out this. It looks like nunchucks.
Oh, right. Oh,
and he starts to unfold it, and he hangs his coat up.
That's right. Can I say something? He was supposed to be German, right?
Tote?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You guys, for probably 2 decades, I thought he was Japanese.
Really?
Yes.
He does have that look about him.
He looks somewhat Asiatic, and there's
he's a.
But they were allies. It's not out of the realm of possibility.
But he looks like a clear. What do you call them? Not Gestapo, but you know what I mean? He has that.
Oh, like an SS
yeah.
kind of. Yeah, he does, but I just, for whatever reason, thought he was some, because there's, in this one, on the Japanese sub, they have Colonel von Kleinschmidt or whatever. They have the German.
Yeah, they do.
Who's Christopher Lee.
Christopher Lee.
Yeah.
So, we already mentioned the film begins with the Jaws parody, which is great. And it turns out there's a Japanese sub in California waters, and there's some Japanese guys on board as well as Christopher Lee, who plays... Sorry, I'm gonna reference the cast list because it's Captain Wolfgang von Kleinschmidt, and then I'm gonna mess up his name, but the commander is Toshiro Mifune.
And it's funny, we brought him up earlier. I was thinking, I'm like, what's the best? What's he analogous to in America? He was kind of the John Wayne of Japan. He was a big collaborator with Akira Kurosawa. Rashomon, Hidden Fortress, Throne of Blood, all that stuff, High and Low. He was kind of, I'd say he's Japan's John Wayne. You know what I mean? He's that big. He's super iconic, and this is one of the very few American roles he had. And not only that, it's his voice. He was always dubbed.
Yeah, he's not dubbed in this because there's subtitles, but he's speaking.
And he's good. I like him in this. It's funny. You have to think too because he fought in the war. So it's got to be kind of weird to
Oh, I heard he shaped the Japanese extras, he got them into shape, was directing them almost. So he's a great addition. But they basically get it into their mind that they're going to attack Hollywood.
Right. They want to hit the mainland.
They want to hit the big, and they come up with Hollywood. They want to get to Hollywood. So
also I love how the Japanese sub crew, they're just kind of bumbling fools. See, this is where I loved all the, you being a big Laurel and Hardy fan, all this goofy slapstick shit that's in the movie. I was eating it up, and I was just like, you've got to be liking a lot of these parts because they're so stupid.
I'm willing to bet this is something that was not in the version you watched.
I'm pissed you got to watch the longer version.
By all means, take the DVD. Outside that diner, which is the next scene, the Little Rascals are there. It's Spanky and Stymie and the dog. They're outside the diner.
Really?
Yeah.
Funny enough, that diner, I did not catch that, but that diner is the diner that's in Duel. And not only that, it's because I watched all these movies with the exception of Close Encounters, because I saw that a year ago in theaters, which was awesome. But there's a lot of in-jokes in 1941.
Oh, yeah.
Anytime Belushi pulls his plane up to that gas station, same one as in Duel, fill it with Ethel. Dual Sugarland. I don't know if Jaws has it, but 1941 obviously does. Fill it with Ethel. Like they keep saying that. Like there's little jokes he's doing. If with your keen eye and you've seen his movies,
well, not
you
only
catch
to
them.
his movies,
Plenty of others.
At one point, Lenny and Squiggy show up
Right.
as I guess they're air command. They're working a air gun. Defense gun, I mean, and yeah, that's a little fun. Also, there are. I watch the credits. We always kind of watch the credits after the movie. There's maybe about 5 people in the credits that I didn't know were in this movie. That's going to be James Caan,
Very brief, I think.
Mickey Rourke,
Mickey Rourke is in it.
and Dick Miller. I didn't pick up on Dick
Dude,
Miller.
I miss Dick Miller, and you know, I love Dick Miller.
Yeah, we just talked about him.
But and he plays Officer Miller.
Yeah.
I did not see him in there.
So after this Japanese scene, we open on our second storyline, which is there's a cook in this diner named Wally. And he's learning how to dance because he's going to take a girl he's infatuated with, Betty, to the big USO dance.
Jitterbug contest.
The Jitterbug contest. Yeah. And eating in the diner is this squadron, this tank force. And Dan Aykroyd plays the sergeant. John Candy, did you know he was in this?
No, maybe. I don't think so. I wasn't surprised to see him. There's a lot of Second City people in this movie.
He doesn't have much to do.
No, he doesn't until the end when he has a really funny scene. Which is...
We're going to come across a couple things that I saw that you didn't see because of this. I have an extra 30 minutes here.
Yeah.
And in a 2-hour film, like that adds up. We're gonna find some things. But yeah, that's kind of our second thing. And one of the tank guys is Corporal Satarsky. I think that's his name.
I was remembering names in this movie.
Well, it's Treat Williams' character.
Oh, Treat Williams, who's just he's a rapist. Just a complete rapist
in this movie.
Oh my god!
Yeah.
Well, no, not in real life. He's a sweet fellow, Treat Williams. We go way back, but yeah. Oh my god! I love how they just made him like, you know, there's a bit of that. You're coming with me, you dame.
Well, so real quick though, the writers of this who wrote Back to the Future, that's kind of Biff. He has the same mentality of like
little Biff. Yeah,
I'm
was
keeping you in the car, and like
Biff was very rapey.
Yeah, it's weird.
Because I just rewatched all 3 of those. I haven't seen those in years.
They're good.
Yeah, they are.
Thomas Wilson.
I love the third one.
That's good.
I just like westerns, I guess. Maybe
that's what works about it.
Yeah.
So yeah, we have this second subplot happening where Treat Williams' character has it out for this Wally, the cook at this restaurant, because he's not enlisted.
Yeah, there's that. He kind of makes up. He gets egg on him. Remember, he doesn't like egg.
Oh yeah. Jesus, mother of God! There's so much shit going on in this movie, and yeah, I mean,
this is going to be a mess of an episode.
It is
because it's a fucking mess of a movie. It really is.
So after that, we're introduced to who I think is the best part of the movie. One of the best parts is Captain Bill Kelso, Wild Bill Kelso, who's played by John Belushi, who this movie is marketed on as the star. Kind of a drunk, cigar chomping.
Well, Belushi was a big deal at the time.
Yeah, I mean, Animal House is huge. Mm-hmm. He was in SNL, and I think the Blues Brothers had like the #1 comedy album or something. Like he was on all fronts. He was the biggest star in the world at this point.
It was up there for sure.
Yeah, well, and Aykroyd too, and I think that's why they kind of get marketed as.
Which, correct me if I'm wrong, I read somewhere this is Aykroyd's film debut. I read that. Who knows the fucking internet?
When's
I don't
Dr.
know.
Detroit?
That's like the 80s.
Is it?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I could be wrong.
Yeah, same here. I just was surprised to read that. I'm like, really?
But John Candy looks so young.
He does. He looks very young.
He doesn't look like your standard John Candy. He looks baby-faced.
He really does.
So yeah, Colonel Bill Kelso lands at this gas station and ends up destroying it. And then this is another plot point that I did not like. The Stillwell stuff.
Is that Stack?
Yeah.
Robert Stack, though, he's so enjoyable to watch.
It is, but what is the point of having this? Like,
I don't know.
He gets a whole subplot where he goes to see Dumbo.
Yeah. Yeah, and he's just, it's kind of, and once again, here's the thing, too. A movie like this, you kind of you should know, it's okay to go into movies cold. A lot of times you can be like, wow, I didn't expect that, or I didn't know this. Sometimes with a movie with a certain age, I'd say a couple decades on it, you should know what you're getting into. So yeah. I sat down, I had a few glasses of wine, thoroughly enjoyed this film. Now, if I was in a different, setting,
Sitting sober watching it 2.5 hour cut of this movie,
I might not feel the same way.
You have a different opinion.
But it was very enjoyable. So like watching Robert Stack watch Dumbo and chuckling to himself while everything goes to shit is funny.
So
but,
all right, I'll give you that. But then there's also the Tim Matheson and
Nancy Allen,
Allen stuff, where she is like turned on by airplanes. So his whole plot that he has in the movie, Tim Matheson's character, who I think is Loomis, his name is, he's trying to get Donna, that's the character's name, up in an airplane so he can have sex with her.
He just wants to get laid in a plane.
And she will do it. And it's like, at one point they like are touring an empty aircraft and they end up dropping a bomb.
Yeah, I like that because it's so hacky, but they keep going, and then it looks like the bomb's not going to get dropped, and then it does.
This movie should have benefited from dropping one of these fucking stories.
You're probably right.
And this is the one
It's the least compelling one. But when the bomb is rolling towards when Robert Stack's giving the speech,
it's funny.
But then it blows up. Like me, I was expecting the bomb to it's rolling and then just kind of stop. But it blows the whole thing up.
So we're gonna get to some more things that I like about this movie, and I'm sure you like those too. The Douglas household, which is Betty's parents, that's the girl that Wally's trying to take to this dance. Ned Beatty plays the patriarch. Mm-hmm. He's great. He's kind of paranoid about what's going on with the war.
Sure.
He has a neighbor named Angelo who is equally paranoid, at which point he's turned the family car into basically a tank. Is that in your cut?
No.
Oh.
God damn it.
We've come to our first, the Little Rascals, now this. So Angelo...
Wait, is it like, who is it? Is it some like dumb Italian neighbor or something?
Hold on, I have the cast list in front of me.
But I mean, is it like I gotta kill these chips over here?
It's the guy that ends up putting them in the Ferris wheel.
I guess I remember now. Yes.
Okay.
Man, there's
so much going on.
For a movie that nothing, basically, like almost nothing happens. There's a lot of shit going on in this.
But he's leading the Ground Observer Corps. Everyone in this neighborhood's a little bit paranoid about, the invasion of the Japanese, especially because they live on a coastline. They're in Santa Monica, right by the beach, so they're paranoid. And the tank crew we met earlier at the diner, led by Dan Aykroyd. He's got
a great name. I forget his rank, but it's Frank Tree.
Well, he's a sergeant.
Sergeant
Frank Tree.
Frank Tree. I got to steal that. That's excellent.
And they decide they want to install this is it an aircraft gun?
Sure.
They want to install an aircraft gun on Ned Beatty Ward's property, and his wife's not having it. She doesn't want this gun there. But
who is Roy Scheider's wife from Jaws?
Oh.
So it playing like the identical role of that, you know what I mean? Like the wife that's like, oh no.
Yeah. So they install this gun there. And then there's, we bring back this Wally character who's now in a zoot suit that he got from a department store, that they're trying to go to the dance with Betty's daughter, but the father can't know about him. And then the one Satarsky, the guy who tripped him earlier at the diner, wants to take her to dance.
Yeah, because you get to the whole thing where it's a USO thing now.
It becomes a USO
only
dance
for
now.
servicemen.
Yeah, civilians are banned.
Can I, quick aside, I loved Betty's fat friend.
Maxine.
Is that her name?
Yeah.
Love that character.
Yeah, that's your fun.
She's funny.
That's your Rebel Wilson character.
And she wants Treat Williams.
Yeah.
Like she's, yeah, I guess that is.
It would be. It seriously would be the Rebel Wilson character.
Well, I actually found her funny in this, though. I think that's the big difference.
So, yeah, again, these plots start to converge a little bit. It's really dumb. It's just really confusing.
By the way, Wally, did you think he was Jewish at first?
I don't know.
I did.
Did you?
No, he's not.
Yeah.
It's like Bobby DeChico or something. I don't know. Whatever. It's like.
All right. So let's get out of this subplot we're in, because there's nothing happening for a while there. Meanwhile, this submarine is lost. The Japanese submarine is completely lost. They don't know where they're at.
The bumbling crew.
So they decide to send scouts to land to find out where they're at.
I got a little confused here. Is that what happened?
Yeah.
Because then they kidnap Slim Pickens, right?
Yeah. So this is what I actually liked about this scene, was that at one point the commander of the Japanese sub says, like, we will, go ashore, and they were the most stealthy of all the. It's kind of like that cut in Last Crusade where they have Indy tied up, and they're like, his father's like, you didn't drag poor Marcus into this, did you? And he's like, we'll find him. And he's like, the hell you will. He'll blend in. He'll disappear. And it cuts to Marcus like bewildered.
Does anyone speak Greek?
Yeah. And so that was kind of like this cut. It cuts to these Japanese soldiers on shore dressed as Christmas trees. And they're like running a little bit, stopping. It's very Three Stooges, like you're saying. It's very slapsticky. But one of the guy who works on this Christmas tree farm is played by Slim Pickens. His name is Hollis Wood. So they see that on the side of his truck and take him aboard the submarine because they think he'll have the location to the Hollywood.
Now, here's what I got to ask you. They did not kidnap him knowing his name, right?
No, they did. They see it on the side of the truck.
Jesus Christ, that part.
It could be another thing that was cut.
I rewound that part.
It could be a thing that was cut.
What the fuck am I missing here?
Did you not see that? This could be a scene that was cut. So he tries to chop down the trees.
None of this.
And they keep grabbing the axe as he's about to cut the tree down.
Okay, we have to watch.
No. Correct yourself.
No.
You have to watch the.
I should have.
Hollis Wood is taken aboard the submarine, and they empty his pockets, and he has a box of Cracker Jacks, and inside the Cracker Jacks is a compass. It's like a
Now, once again, I have to ask you: did their compass break?
Yes, you might have missed that scene too.
Okay, I missed.
Their instruments broke.
But it sets up a great scene where the Japanese are like, "Where Hollywood?" And he's like, I'm here.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
It's very who's on first.
Yeah, and
scene.
I love Slim Pickens is hilarious as it is, but so stupid.
They find this compass in the Cracker Jack box, and Slim Pickens swallows it because...
And once again, I have to, not to cut you off, I have to point out, I feel like the comic timing of how it's filmed works for a lot of this stuff. And this is where I get into the confidence of Spielberg as a director. He knew the editing to these early movies, probably all his movies, any movie, really benefits from like tight editing. And he gives them the shots to work with there. But that scene when Slim Pickens, they're like, oh, a compass. And all of a sudden he's there, whoop, and he just eats
swallows it. So yeah, and I think this is where I was telling you that hangar scene would have been in the script. It's this scene when they're like, we have to get the compass back, and someone took out like the hanger, like they're going to operate on him.
Right.
But in reality, they slammed down a bottle of prune juice.
Yeah.
And then...
And it's great they're feeding with him. I love how the one Japanese guy...
just starts pouring it.
But he's singing some song. It's so funny,
it's like
man.
they're waterboarding him, but they're just dumping prune juice down his... So after that, we come to what for me is the best subplot of the movie, which is the Ferris wheel sequence.
Oh, I thought... See, we're going to agree. I was like, Joe's going to hate this part. No. I loved this part.
It's the best part of the movie.
So basically, what is it? Like, they're going up in the two guys... And
well, so it's the neighbor I talked about earlier, Angelo, who's leading this ground observer corps. It's Murray Hamilton. Who's the mayor from Jaws.
Another
Jaws actor. And Eddie Deason, who, if you don't know Eddie Deason, I grew up with him, and you mentioned this earlier, Dexter's Lab. He was Mandark.
He was Mandark, yeah. Dexter's arch nemesis.
Yeah.
And it's so funny. The second I saw that, I could hear Mandark.
He's got such a specific voice. So specific.
And I'm not a big Grease fan. Apparently, he's in both the Grease movies. I knew him from War Games.
Oh.
It's the scene where Matthew Broderick goes, so I think they're at a college, and it's like computer guys, and it's the one, like, bigger guy, and him. Oh, what did you bring? Oh, let me see it. Blah, 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 blah.
Oh, yeah.
He never shuts up, and it's when these two are on the Ferris wheel, he just keeps talking.
So the one guy who's the mayor from Jaws, Murray, his name's Claude. He hates heights, and they're being installed in this Ferris wheel in an amusement park that's closed because they're going to be looking out on the lookout for submarines or aircraft,
whatever.
So yeah, they get sent up in this Ferris wheel together. Eddie Deason and Murray Hamilton's character, Herb, I think Herb and Claude is their names, and he will just not shut up. And he's just, look at this, look at the height. And at one point he drops a grapefruit over to see how...
I'm going to drop it. Should I drop it? I don't know if I should drop it. Can I drop it? That goes on.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry. I found it, I was like...
And then the way the scene ends is so brilliant. There's like a group or like a bag in between them. And it starts to ruffle, and it falls, and it's a ventriloquist dummy dressed as a sailor, and he just turns and looks at Murray Hamilton and goes, "Scared of heights, huh?" And his cigarette just drops out of his mouth. It's just a great...
It's really, those two are so funny in this movie, man. I could have watched an hour and a half of those two sitting in the Ferris wheel.
Yeah,
I'm going to drop it. Should I drop it? I don't know if I should drop it. Do you think I should drop it?
Oh, I should have timed it.
Yeah.
It's great.
It's really funny, man.
Cut back to Slim Pickens, who's now on the toilet in the submarine.
Boys, I need some privacy if you expect me to do my business.
He gives the classic, I think at one point he says, "You ain't getting shit out of me." He comes up with a plan where he gets him to leave because he wants privacy. Then he throws his boots in the toilet to act like he's finally gone to the bathroom. And then they all rush in and he's gone. He's hanging up on the ceiling. He drops down on them and he ends up escaping.
He gets out.
And that's the last we see of him.
In his undies. We don't see him again. You're right.
Yeah, for the rest of the movie.
He is floating on something. He grabs something. He's like, "Oh, damn it! This is all I got," or whatever.
So
whoa! You watch the extended version. They don't wrap up what happens to him.
No. Surprisingly,
he just drowns and dies.
So far, the only thing we've discovered is that they expand on his being Hollis Wood. So in the version you watched, how does he get aboard the submarine? What happens? They just have a guy all of a sudden?
So there's they're on from what I remember, they carjack him. They're all on the side of a road. They're running up.
Yeah.
They flag down a car. And that's it. Then they just cut to him.
I'm telling you, there's a whole sequence that happens.
Dude, I rewound it 3 times because I was just like, I guess they're just going straight to the thing.
Doesn't that always amaze you with stuff they cut from movies? Is stuff that when you look back at it, you're like, that's the stuff that should have been left in. The stuff that explains how the plot moves forward.
I agree. Look,
not this fucking fight sequence that happens later in the movie that goes on for 7 minutes at least.
I can only say from personal experience, I've told you this a million times, but something I did, I had to cut out a large portion of why the thing even made sense, because you can see me in a mirror holding a camera. You know what I mean? I had to cut that out. It happens, man. Things happen. And
I doubt Steven Spielberg was in a mirror. And that
you never know. I mean, with a movie like this, who fucking knows? But once again, if you look at these 5 movies he did, you got to give him an enormous amount of credit. He deserves, and I shit on Spielberg all the time anymore. I have my reasons, but man, I just absolute almost perfect. I think Spielberg may have got as close to perfect as you can get with movies, because a lot of people bitch Jaws or whatever, and Raiders and Star Wars, of course, kind of ruined cinema. Invented the blockbuster, but it's only because he did it so well.
Yeah, he reset what it meant to.
The movies are that good.
Yeah.
So of course everyone's going to want to fucking imitate them afterwards. But
in my top 5 films, it's one film he directed and one he was directly involved with. And when you keep top 10, that number just keeps multiplying and growing. And if it's not a movie he directed, it's a movie he produced. If it's not a movie he produced, it's a movie he wrote. It just keeps going until
I'd assume most people, if you're going to make a top 10 list, you're going to have one Spielberg in there.
Of course.
I mean, I looked at his filmography and I was like, holy shit. Because, I had never seen Sugarland Express or Duel or 1941. So at this point, I was like, oh my God. I was like, I've basically seen almost every Spielberg movie. I haven't seen Always.
Always. Yeah, it's one with Dreyfus.
John Goodman. Oh, by the way, I should have asked you this before. Can you tell your Dreyfus story?
Oh, gosh. I don't want to get that sidetracked on... That's a Patreon thing.
Okay. All right. Well, Joe has a good Richard Dreyfuss story, but if anyone wants to pay us money, you can listen to it on Patreon.
If we get... I'll do this. If we get 5 Patreon subs after this episode airs, I'll tell the story. We'll tell it on Patreon.
And I'll tell something revealing.
You can tell your Vin Diesel story.
Oh, I'll tell my Vin Diesel story. Yeah.
There you go.
Which kind of ruined celebrities for me forever.
Hey, we got some great stories. Patreon.com/HatsOffEntertainment.
There you go. Sign up, folks. Groot's an asshole. Just so you know. But
so in this, Slim Pickens gets out, and did you happen? I feel like this is something that's not in your cut. There is a barracks scene with John Candy, and who is the name of the actor that he kind of goes to war with later in the movie? So there's a barracks scene with John Candy and Frank McRae. That's the character's name. He plays Private Jones.
Frank, yeah, you're right.
And dude, I wanted to ask you about this because I don't know what the point of it is. Because John Candy sees him come into the barracks and starts to paint a Mason-Dixon line in the barracks with paint. like, and instantly gets on this, like, he comes up, John Candy's character is like a racist, one.
I assume, well, here's the other thing, too. The movie's totally anachronous in the sense that they wouldn't have been together. Desegregation didn't happen until like 7 years later. Like, and there was a few, like, some semi-integrated units in World War II, but nothing like, there's no black guy. It doesn't happen. I'm sorry.
It's just it was a very weird scene. And it's like weird to see John Candy play kind of like a dumb yokel. Like it's just, I don't know. For me, it didn't work. And yeah, I guess that's not in your cut.
God, that we have to. This is a problem.
I guarantee it's none of the scenes that mattered.
I know. I'm just saying.
So then there's this USO dance happening, and outside the club, Satarsky gets into a spat with Wally, who's trying to get in because he wants to dance with Betty, but he can't because he's a civilian. So Wally ends up knocking out a guard, and
who was totally so this. I guess it's an MP. I don't know. He's escorting some drunk sailor out of the USO.
By the way, the drunk sailor is castor oil from Popeye.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, little throwback to our Popeye episode.
There's another guy in here I wanted to point out. We'll see if it comes to me. I don't know. But Wally totally screwed that guy. He stripped him naked, tied him up in an alley, and then later on, that guy comes back in like and wants to fucking kill him. Yeah. Rightfully so.
In his underwear.
That said, Wally was a jitterbug champ.
He was the jitterbug champ.
He was good. And there's like a movie exec there that wants to sign him.
There was, and Joe Flaherty.
So good. Joe Flaherty was hilarious in this. Great. He's really, really funny as like the MC.
Sam Stewart, but then his real name is Raoul Lipschitz. Is that it?
Yeah. Right.
That's great.
It's really good. He plays like, the MC of the club in the jitterbug contest or what have you. A sequence I loved, by the way.
Yeah. Well,
I thought this whole sequence was really good when they're trying to dance and he's trying to fight him. And
this might have been something that might be extended in the cut I watched. For me, it ran a little too long, so who knows?
Basically, I'll say this. I think everything runs too long in this movie.
Yeah, it does.
Now, I'm enjoying it, so I don't really care. But once again,
it could be a little bit tighter.
Oh, yeah.
Did you happen to notice that Belushi plays an old man in one shot?
Yeah, eating spaghetti or whatever.
Yeah,
it's pretty good.
Yeah, it is pretty good.
All mayhems, but so basically they're at the jitterbug contest and
Satarsky.
In a movie
Wally.
like this, I'm just looking at it's like Treat Williams and Wally essentially. I can't keep these fucking names straight. But yeah, they're dancing and fighting and all that shit, and eventually it
ends up going into the street.
Yeah, they all go out in the street, and then mayhem ensues and. Yes, you briefly see John Belushi eating spaghetti as a wall gets knocked in or something like that.
It's very quick.
Yeah.
But it's clearly John Belushi, an old man. So then we cut back to this plot with Tim Matheson trying to get this girl up on a plane where they're at Warren Oates shows up now. And
but Warren Oates.
He's great.
Yeah, they go for what? Oh, so Warren Oates is requesting basically like backup.
He thinks there's in Pomano, is that how you say it?
Yeah, Pomano.
Pomano, he thinks there's like a hidden Japanese base.
Yeah. Right. Warren Oates, by the way, great actor. Wild Bunch, awesome. Sergeant Hulka in Stripes.
Mm-hmm.
If you ever want to see a really good Warren Oates performance, he plays GTO in Two Lane Blacktop.
I haven't seen it.
Check it out.
Yeah.
He's really good in it.
By the way,
very funny guy.
Stripes almost becomes what this movie, I think, wanted to be. Like, wanted to be Animal House in the Army. And Stripes, so many of the same cast members end up appearing in that.
See, I see what you're saying. I don't necessarily agree. I don't think this movie was trying to be Animal House. I think you hit it earlier. It kind of, and once again, I don't even think they were trying to do this. I think they realized pretty quick, we're like, oh, we're making a mad world.
I guess.
It's what it is, essentially.
Well, you do get like that, again, the naked chick in the beginning. Like, there's some, like, studio exec, I feel like, going, well, we got Belushi, Animal House, let's make it zany, and, like, because they market the movie off Belushi.
They do market it off him. Everything I've seen with this movie, it's first and foremost him with the flight goggles on, and it's everything you see with this movie.
I tweeted out a poster before we started recording, and it's him saying, like, Wild Bill Kelso wants you, and it's a great poster, but it's what they marketed the film on. So yeah, more characters. Right now we're probably, I guess, 2/3 of the way through this movie.
So at this point, Tim Matheson is flying through the air trying to get laid.
Right.
Eventually, John Belushi's Kelso is after them because they don't have a radio in the plane.
Right.
The plane is so they can't be like, hey, we're up here fucking.
So he thinks they're Japanese, and the people on the ground think that Belushi's Japanese.
So while this riot essentially is happening on, I don't know, Hollywood Boulevard or
Hollywood
whatever.
Boulevard's
Is
supposed
it
to be.
really?
Mhm.
That's weird. Call back to Joe Dante.
That's right.
His first movies. The planes are now dogfighting over Hollywood Boulevard. Essentially.
And they're really cool visual effects.
Really cool.
I mean, and I should point out, this film gets 3 Academy Award nominations, and one of them is for Best Visual Effects. So when you hear people say, like, there's nothing redeemable, it's a terrible movie, it doesn't make... It makes a profit almost, and it gets some Academy Award nominations. Like,
yeah, I mean, sure. This is in no way, not even close to Spielberg's worst movie.
well, so I put that out on Twitter, and someone chimed right in and said Ready Player One, which obviously you haven't seen. You're not a new Spielberg
so
fan.
basically, no, I worshipped Spielberg growing up.
No, I said you haven't really seen a lot of the newer Spielberg movies.
Let me tell you what.
BFG, Ready Player One.
You know what really turned me off with Spielberg? And he retracted this from what I remember. Basically, he did that recut of E.T. And there's that scene where...
he followed his buddy Lucas's footsteps and added some effects and did that.
Well, no, he went a step further, which I had a problem with. There's that scene where E.T. and Elliot take off. You know, they're riding up to like there's kind of a roadblock.
This is where he had Billy Crystal voice E.T. in the whole film.
Right,
yeah,
exactly.
I know.
And Billy Crystal, I can love him.
It pissed a lot of people off. I'm sorry, go on.
No, but he fucking CGI'd out. The cops were holding shotguns. And he CGI'd those out and put in walkie-talkies. And I thought that was like, to me, that's like sacrilegious. That's just, why do that? Why? Because guns are bad? Even if they are, it's fucking, people have guns. It's so stupid. He apparently, I didn't look this up and verify, but from what I remember, he said I was stupid. I shouldn't have done that. Yeah. But once he did something like that, I was kind of done with him. Warhorse and Lincoln, I've seen bits and pieces of, but beyond that, I just have not watched any.
If you're ever looking for a great day to nap, you want to do a double feature of both those films. And
I've heard Warhorse is great.
I'm sure it is. It's just like, for me to not really have an interest in what Spielberg does anymore, it says a lot. Like, again, he is someone that defined my love of film growing up. He is the guy that you looked at and said, oh, you can be a director. You can be this for a living.
Well, not only that, like, he really almost perfected filmmaking. So yeah, it's like, of course you're going to like his... Like,
he redefined what it meant, I mean, for this era.
I think he defined...
I mean, that could be true, too.
Sure, I get what you're saying, but, I mean, these movies... Go watch the first 5 movies he made. They're really good. Even when they're not, like 1941, they're still good. I can't say enough about Sugarland Express, by the way. I think that's a really great movie.
Yeah. Yeah, but I'll have to check that one out.
But,
with 1941 just kind of converges at the end. All these storylines come together. So as we say, Kelso shoots down the plane that has Tim Matheson and Donna Stratton in it.
Which is funny because they are just like, at a certain point, he's just like, all right, we're fucking.
Yeah.
They're not even flying the plane.
They're not even flying the plane.
It's kind of funny.
They crash in the La Brea tar pits.
Right.
And then Belushi gets shot down by, is it the submarine or the guys in the Ferris wheel that end up? I think it's
it is the Ferris wheel because they're like, we just shot down one of our own.
Yeah, they realize that they shot down one of their own planes.
And they do. They get a hit on. They hit him.
Yeah, and then the sub, in turn, fires at the Ferris wheel.
Yeah, because they come back. The kid comes back to get them down, some kid, and he inadvertently turns on all the lights, and they think, oh, Hollywood.
Yeah.
And they just start fucking, hitting it.
And then Ned Beatty's character has, in the meantime, hopped on the defense gun that's on his front lawn and destroys most of his house trying to fire at the submarine.
Real quick aside, if you want a great two Ned Beatty things, go watch his monologue from Network. It's on YouTube. If you ever seen Network's, I love Network, but his monologue explains the world. If you ever want to know how things actually work, and then if you want, this is a deep cut. There's a Kids in the Hall sketch. Do you like Kids in the Hall?
Yeah,
I'm a huge fan of Kids. I love Kids in the Hall. But so Dave Foley's having a date over, and he's like, let's watch a movie. And all he does is he keeps playing the scene from Deliverance where Ned Beatty gets raped. And she's like,
oh my God.
His date is like, why do you always want to watch this scene? He's like, oh, the writing is so good. I cannot go watch that Kids in the Hall sketch. It's so funny.
So let's wrap this movie up because I don't know what much else to say about it. All these plots converge. Dan Aykroyd gets kind of zoned out.
Yeah, why does Dan Aykroyd like loses it?
Some hits him in the head.
Oh, is that what happens?
Mm-hmm. And he goes crazy.
Because I'm watching, I'm like, why the fuck? He loses his mind. Like, he's like, whoa! Like, he's doing crazy shit.
Yeah, no, he gets hit in the head.
So there's also, real quick, I mean, obviously, we gotta wrap this up at some point. The movie's a mess, folks. I mean, we can't give you a good plot here. We watch it.
By the time we get to the end of our episodes, it's usually we've had a couple of beers in this, and we're just like, we realize some of these movies that we've done just kind of, at least like this, and I remember Dick Tracy, like there's so much going on that's so hard to follow and talk about after the fact. And especially with this, I mean, there's so much going on.
Well, just one thing I wanted to touch on, because you know me, I'm a big fan of racial humor. When John Candy and, what was his name, Frank McRae, who's the black soldier, they're in the tank, and something happens which gets like white powder on the black soldier. And then the oil or whatever the fuck is backing up at the tank.
It's like gunpowder.
Yeah, and John Candy gets a face full of soot. So they're next to each other. John Candy's in blackface. The white guy's in white, or the black guy's in whiteface. Yeah. And they just kind of start, look at you, look at me,
and they rub their finger on their face and look at it's fine.
It's kind of funny. I don't know. I like that stupid shit.
Well, it's nice. Again, you know I'm a huge John Candy fan. It's just nice to see him doing something in this movie other than standing around.
They gave him a cigarette holder. I noticed that was his little character trait.
And so the Ferris wheel ends up crashing into the ocean, and we see the ventriloquist dummy pop up and spit water out, which is great. And then
it's one thing we're glossing over. There's like hundreds of little gags in this movie, and most of them work for me. I think most of them are pretty funny. There's a ton. Really, this is going to be a big recommend for me to go watch, because we are in no way covering everything that happens in this movie. There's so much shit that happens in the movie.
There is 1,000 plot threads. There's so many little scenes that are nods to other movies, Spielberg's movies, other characters.
I mean, there's so many. Sam Fuller's in this.
Yeah,
the director. He pops up at one point. Like
John Landis is in it too.
John Landis is in it. And he's the guy on the motorcycle. I didn't realize till late. I'm like, oh fuck! Like,
yeah,
so much shit going on.
So much stuff going on. It is a fun movie in the extent that they don't make movies like this big ensemble cast anymore.
No.
And
I miss them so much.
It's fun to see.
I love these movies.
I mean, the closest thing you had is maybe Rat Race, which
was good.
It's
fun.
It's fun.
Hey, let me ask you something. I never saw this. I think it was movie 43. Is that what it was called?
Oh, yeah.
Was that what everyone shat on that movie, which made me think it was worthwhile?
Well, 43 isn't one plot. It's a sketch comedy movie that's broken up into different vignettes.
But it's still, to me, that's kind of an ensemble cast. Was that movie any good? I know it's a weird
No,
aside.
it got critically
Did
panned.
You see?
I've never seen it.
Oh, okay, never mind then.
I know that. I just remember when it came out, and it got some really bad reviews. And Peter Farley had said, like, I don't get Hollywood. They beg for something different, and you give it to them, and they hate it.
Right.
And so I don't. That might be a fact. Like people just didn't want that kind of movie. I don't know.
It seemed weird and nasty, and like you said right there, like Hollywood asks for it and then doesn't want them.
Yeah.
I wonder. I don't know. Maybe that one might be one to check out at some point.
Yeah, I mean, I think that as we keep doing this, we've almost been covering movies that get a bad rap that aren't that bad.
I think that's kind of what we're going for here.
Yeah, I mean, and 1941 is definitely a movie that feels that way. It's a movie that, I think it's, you've said unfairly maligned before, and I really do think it's that way. It's not, by any stretch of the means, it's not like, for me, it wasn't like, oh, this is great. I'm glued to the screen every second. There's parts of it that really drag. There's so much going on. But like the parts that are fun are pretty fun. Like Belushi's really fun in it. It's nice to see Aykroyd and John Candy and the Nancy Allen. Like there's so many people I enjoy in this movie.
Not only that, with these early Spielberg movies, he was really doing, they're almost regional. You follow what I'm saying
sure.
here? So he really used what was around him at the time. I mean, he's like, I feel like, I don't know. I always say this about the Coens. I feel like the Coens are the most American filmmakers.
Here we go again.
Oh, they really embrace Americana and America and just what we're doing, who we are, good or bad, it doesn't matter. Spielberg was really, he still is. I mean, I don't know now, but I think he kept that through line throughout his career. Like, I'm telling you, these first 5 movies are Americana, essentially. Like, they're American families dealing with things, essentially. And it's really interesting. It's fun to watch because, God damn it, I swear to God, if I could imagine living in L.A. in, like, 1941. Oh, it seemed like paradise.
Yeah.
Just to live. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. Who knows? Rose-colored glasses.
No,
but...
I mean, I think that, you know, it was a really interesting time because you had, like, the pre-World War II stuff going on, and like films and we're just shifting in general towards more like celebrating Americanism. And it's you know, like,
I don't even like, it's the one thing I noticed about Spielberg, he's not necessarily celebrating, he's just like, this is, you know, it's just America. It's
What's Dan Aykroyd's line in this movie where he's like, he hates to see Americans
fighting each other.
Yeah, and that's kind of what this is.
Yeah.
It becomes a lot of that.
Yeah.
And it's just a really, you know, it's not that bad. It's hard to sit through because there's so much going on, but the scenes that work, the stuff that doesn't. But it's, you know what? Like, I'm so glad that Spielberg took a chance and did this movie. And not only that, like, it wasn't even the end of him working with Bob Gale and Zemeckis. Like, he would do Back to the Future with them, which arguably became one of the largest hits of all their careers. And I mean, I don't know what Zemeckis is doing nowadays, but
Zemeckis did what was that piece of shit that just came out?
Anything in the last? No, Morrowind.
Welcome to Morrowind.
Welcome to Morrowind.
Did anyone watch that movie? I really want to ask our listeners if anyone watched that movie.
If we get 10 Patreon signups, Ryan and I will watch Welcome to Morrowind and share our thoughts.
We should do that on a Patreon. That would be really funny because I almost want to watch that.
Well, you know what else he just did is the Witches remake, which is on HBO right now.
Yeah, I'm kind of over watching remakes and
that's fine, but like I want to see.
I think Zemeckis is amazing.
I want to see him
talented.
I want to see him do stuff that's not this ridiculous motion capture, whatever the fuck he was doing.
He got so into mocap. I don't know why. It was Beowulf and Polar Express. He got so into it, and that Morrowind, man, whew.
Yeah, because that kind of uses that same technology.
Oh, yeah.
In the action figure scenes. Wow.
By the way, 1941, big recommend.
Yeah, watch it. Check it out.
I really think you should check it out. If you like Spielberg, I think you should check it out.
It's worth checking out. It's a movie where you look at, like, you know, a lot of the stars were just beginning their career.
Yeah, oh yeah.
And the behind the scenes stuff. So it's a really great time capsule to look back on. I really didn't hate it. There's so much going on, and watching this 2.5 hour version of it was a bit much.
I could see that. Once again, I got myself in the right mindset to watch this movie. I knew what I was getting into. It's a screwball fucking comedy. I mean, Spielberg at one point thought, should I just make this a musical?
I did read that, yeah.
So it's like, like you said, the movie has an identity crisis. It has no idea what it wants to be. In spite of that, I think it kind of works. It's just so balls to the wall, silly. And like you said, it ends basically with, you know, Ned Beatty, he's got the gun on his lawn. He witnesses, or he sees the sub. He's like, oh shit, the sub's right there. It's out right in front of my house, essentially. So he starts using the gun, which was a great scene where Dan Aykroyd, earlier in the movie, is telling him, this is what you do not do. And he's telling him how to work it. So Ned Beatty shoots himself through his own house a couple times. And then the like, well, it's still Christmas or whatever. And he puts the wreath on the door, and the whole fucking house falls over
a cliff.
Yeah.
And they actually built a facade of a house and pushed it over a cliff. And it's pretty cool.
By the way, I've always wondered this, you know, when a car drives off a cliff at a movie or into the ocean or a house falls over, who picks that up afterwards?
Oh, it's just left there.
Do you think it is?
I don't know. I mean, I'd imagine someone has to go take care of it.
I just always wondered that. I'm like, you're really kind of fucking the environment up.
So, real quick before we wrap up, because we're almost going to wrap up here, favorite Spielberg movie?
I mean, I guess I go Raiders of the Lost Ark. I don't know.
That's a great one.
It's pretty good.
I'm going to go Jurassic Park.
Jurassic Park is pretty... That might be his best movie.
Yeah, well, that was certainly like another defining hit for him, where what he did with the visual effects.
How does a guy, like, at least twice he's changed the game, as they say.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, come on.
Yeah, I mean, if legacy, you know, that's going to be it. He's a guy that he really has changed how cinema is viewed and received. And
just think, if you made Jurassic Park, you'd be like, he's made like 10 Jurassic Parks, basically. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
dude,
yeah.
the guy he just knows how to make a movie.
That's a really good point too. Like, he did this silly World War II movie and then kind of comes back into it with another.
One of the best movies ever made.
Yeah.
Not only that, he had 2 of the best movies ever made before 1941.
Yeah.
Like, it's fucking nuts. Like, it's almost annoying. You almost get angry at him. Like, stop being so good.
Yeah, so we're coming to the end now. 1941, we're finishing up our discussion. It was an interesting project to look back on. Obviously, like we said, we do want to do more Patreon content because there's only so far we can go in talking about these movies. We want to go beyond that. We want to do bonus discussions. So yeah, I mean, get at us there, get it at us on Twitter. Let us know what you'd like to see.
Yeah, hit us up at the is it almostcoldclassics.com?
Yeah, you can find all our links there.
You send us movies that you'd like to hear about. Send us shit you didn't like about this episode, or
let's hear it.
You liked, or whatever. Send us shit.
So we're gonna go back to listener requests for our next episode, and we pulled through some emails, and we picked out The Dream Team, which is 1989, I believe, Michael Keaton comedy, and Chris Elliott's Cabin Boy, which is one we get requested a lot. So we're going to throw that poll up on our Patreon. Again, that's patreon.com/hatsoffentertainment. Go there. You can decide what episode you want to hear next, and we will see you next time for that discussion.
Thanks for listening, guys.
See you next time.